Josh, I know it's the Super Bowl today, man. I'm all about it. We're talking about games, and whether that's the Super Bowl, whether that's Winter Olympics, Summer Olympics, I don't know, college basketball, whatever it is. I mean, we're talking about games, right? I'll tell you, when it does come to the Olympics, though, there are some events that I don't know if I like them better. I just like the way they're scored better than some others. Here's what I mean. Some different Olympic events, I get frustrated with what the judges decide. Somebody is the winner and somebody is not. You know what I'm saying? For example, I mean, you got figure skating, okay? Or you got, diving. I mean, with figure skating, somebody, does a whole bunch of spins faster than somebody else? Or how do we decide that somebody did something better on ice without falling down than somebody else did on ice without falling down? The diving, who made the bigger splash? Is that what we're going for? But sometimes somebody makes a bigger splash, but then the judges say, yeah, but that was a harder dive than that one. Well, I don't know what we're deciding on that. What's the criteria? Snowboarding, I can't do it in the first place. In the second place, like somebody does a flip or something and it looks really impressive to me, and then, you hear the commentators go, well, he really messed up on that. I'm like, did he? Because it looked like he did fine. Boxing, do you know there's a point system in boxing where, every single round they decide this fighter hit the other person more times than the other person hit them or hit better? I don't know. Like if you get punched in the face versus punching the chin or stomach, is that better? I'm not for sure. I'm sure there's some of you that can tell me afterwards which one is better. But even the gymnastics, if somebody does like the floor exercises and they do a whole bunch of flips and whatever, and people are cheering every single time somebody gets done with floor exercises, or the bars when they're flipping on the uneven bars. And then they, stick the landing. Is it better to just stick the landing, no problem? Or if they stop and they're doing like this, and then, is that better or worse? I don't know. And that's frustrating to me. I like sports where there's a definitive, objective, yes, you did better than other people at this. You scored more points. You ran faster. You threw farther. You jumped higher. Whatever it is, it's just, that's what it is. The problem with these kind of games where you just kind of have somebody deciding randomly on maybe, some kind of rubric, some kind of criteria, but still it's kind of their own judgment and going, well, this person wins or this person did better than that. The problem with that is it's just so subjective. And it all comes down to comparison. And I sit there and or a judge sits there and goes, okay, I like the way that they did this better than the way that they did this, and so I'm going to pick them to be the winner. And this other person's going, but I feel like I did better than them. Well, I didn't feel that way, so I'm going to give them the gold medal instead of you. Like, that's frustrating to me. But if you think about it, we compare things a lot, right? Not just in, sporting events and things like that. We compare things all the time. We compare different restaurants to each other. We compare, you go shopping, you compare this shirt to that shirt. You want to see some fights get started, watch a couple go try to pick out paint for a wall in their house and compare all the different swatches of color for the wall, right? It's gray. No. It's not gray. It's off-white. Okay, I don't know, whatever. We'll have all these different swatches and stuff. And we compare. Do I like this better? Do I like this better? We do it all the time. And that's what I really want us to talk about today as we talk about these games that we play. And we started talking about this last week. Not sporting games, but relationship games that we play. The things that we do in our relationships that ultimately are about us trying to win. Us trying to win an argument. Us trying to get things done our way. Us trying to manipulate or make the other person that we're in this connection with see things and do things the way that we want them to so that we get our way. And maybe we don't even care, maybe we don't even pay attention to what kind of damage it's doing to the relationship or how it affects the other person. As long as I get what I want, as long as I'm happy, as long as things go the way that I want them to, we're fine. And it happens in our families, it happens in our marriages, it happens in dating relationships, it happens in friendships. If we're not careful, we can find ourselves playing a lot of different games, and in the process of trying to win, we end up losing. We hurt each other. We may even lose the relationship altogether. So we started talking about this last week. And if you missed last week's lesson started talking about this, I rattled off a handful of different relationship games we play. And so if you missed that, I would invite you to go back either on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page and find that lesson from last week as we talked about these different games we play. We're going to talk about a specific one today that I think maybe a lot of us struggle with and don't even realize that we're actually playing sometimes, and the kind of impact that it's having. And that is the comparison game. And you may be thinking, okay, I don't know that game. I don't know how that works. How does a comparison game work? Well, it could be in a friendship, like I said. It could be between parents and kids, kids and parents. Could be between spouses. Could be a dating relationship. But basically, it boils down to I am looking at another relationship, and I compare it to the one that I'm in. So I look at somebody else's friendship, and I compare that to our friendship. Or I look at somebody else's marriage, and I compare that to my marriage, right? I look at somebody else's kids and the way that they interact with them, or somebody else's parents, the way that they interact with them, and I compare that to mine. And I watch how that couple interacts, right? I see how that family gets along, right? I watch what those friends do together. And I compare that to the relationship that I'm in. And what I end up deciding is, whatever relationship it is that I'm comparing my relationship to is better than what I have. They've got something better going on than what I've got here. And while that might seem innocent in and of itself, the problem is that I crave so badly what they have, and I want so badly what they have, that I start doing hurtful things in the relationship that I'm in order to try to get that. Now, let me say this. It doesn't make me a bad person to compare things. We compare all the time, as I said at the beginning. And it's not even necessarily bad to compare myself to somebody else or compare a relationship that I'm in to somebody else. That's not wrong in and of itself. Because we do that, right? I compare my looks to somebody else's looks. I compare my bank account to somebody else's bank account. Somebody else's house to my house. Somebody else's car to my car. Somebody's level of popularity to my lack of it. Somebody's relationships and friendships to mine. The problem comes in when I consistently compare my family dynamic or my marriage or my friendships to someone else's, and I'm constantly disappointed in mine. That becomes a problem. And I can start to want and maybe even expect to have whatever it is that they have. And if I'm in this relationship with you and I'm comparing us to them, I want you to want that as much as I do. And when you don't, well, that gets frustrating for me. Or if I get the sense that you're not on the same page with me and wanting what they have as bad as what I want, then I want to start manipulating things. I want to start saying certain things or becoming more critical or giving you guilt trips to try to get whatever it is that I want. And I start saying things like, well, why can't you be more like him? Why don't you treat me the way that she treats him? The last guy I dated wasn't like this. Their family does such and such so much better than ours does. We start to compare and we start to get critical. And I think that we should be more like them. And I want that. And so I treat you in a very negative, very critical way in order to get us to be like them. And if we can be like them, then I win. That's the comparison game. And a lot of us play it on a regular basis. And if you are sitting there going, okay, I kind of do that, and I don't even know why I do that sometimes. I don't even know why that's an issue for me. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why we compare ourselves and allow that comparison to start having a negative impact in our lives. And for some of us, it's our own lack of self-worth. I just don't feel very good about myself. And maybe that's a lifelong thing, or maybe that's something more recent, but I compare myself to other people, and I think just other people in general are just better than me. I don't feel like I have this sense that I just don't measure up, or that I'm just not successful enough, or whatever the standard is that I set for myself or that I see in others, I'm not fulfilling that. And so when I see someone else having a healthy relationship and it feels like I don't have or we don't have what they have, that just triggers those feelings of not measuring up. That just reinforces that thought that I'm just not good enough. I'm not good enough and we're not good enough. And so I either try to make you feel bad too. I try to blame you and say it's your fault that I don't feel good about us. I try to get you to agree with me that this should look different than what it is. And ultimately, it's all about me. I want to feel better about myself. So I'm going to get on to you about making us look like them so that I'll feel better about me. That lack of self-worth, that lack of thinking that I measure up can cause me to compare. Sometimes it's just my own past experiences. Maybe I've had a really good relationship, a really good connection with somebody else, and this doesn't seem to measure up to that. Or maybe I've had some really negative experiences in the past, and whatever is going on between us starts to feel like we're creeping that direction. And so whatever it is that's happened in the past, I'm comparing us now to what I've had in the past. Maybe sometimes it's just unmet expectations. I have decided what a healthy relationship looks like, what a healthy connection looks like. Or I have decided that whatever I see in these other people, that's what I expect from us. And we're not meeting that expectation. And maybe I had a picture in mind of what it was going to look like when we got married. Or I knew what our family was going to look like, what our family dynamic was going to be. Or maybe we're just not as close of friends as I thought we were going to be, or spending the same kind of time that I thought we were going to spend. And especially when I look around and see other people who seem to have, a more positive, at least on the surface, a more positive marriage, a better friendship, a better family dynamic than me. It's like watching somebody else living my dream. Somebody else is meeting my expectations, but not you. And I may never have even told you what my expectations are, but I'm disappointed in you anyway. Because we are not meeting what I had in my mind that we would be. We have these unmet expectations. Maybe it just boils down, and honestly, this is probably the biggest culprit. It boils down to just simple envy. Just jealousy. I look at what somebody else has, and I want it for myself. It looks good. I like it better. I'm convinced that I deserve it. I just want it. And whatever that is, that can be a dangerous thing for me, and especially when it comes to relationships. I see what somebody else has, or at least what I perceive that they have in their relationship, and I just want that for me. And because I'm comparing us, and because I feel like we don't have what they have, and I want what they have, then I got to figure out how to get you to start being, and us to start being like them, because I'm jealous. And there could be a variety of other reasons too. These are some of the more common things that cause us to compare ourselves, especially to compare our relationships, to those of other people. So what ends up happening? Well, I get dissatisfied. I get frustrated. I become dissatisfied with this relationship. I don't like dating this person anymore. I get frustrated with our marriage. I get angry at my kids. I get frustrated with my parents. I want to be friends with this person anymore. Why? Because they're not measuring up to the standard that I have in my mind. They're not measuring up to what I'm comparing us to. And maybe, as we're in this relationship together, maybe you don't want the same things that I do. Maybe you don't want this relationship to look like them or to look like whatever it is that I've conjured up in my mind. And we don't talk through that. We don't talk about that. You just have your expectation. I have mine, or I'm comparing us to somebody else. And if you don't have the same mindset that I do, well, then I can't win. I want you to think like me, and I want us to be like them. And when we're not, man, I just get frustrated and think I don't want to be a part of this relationship anymore. The comparison game breeds criticism. It breeds negativity. I become more negative, more judgmental, and more critical about how you do things or how you don't do things, about the things you say or the things you don't say. And that becomes a habit. The more that I do that, and the more that I focus on the flaws and the mistakes and the faults and the things that I don't like, the things that I think are keeping us from being like these other people that I see seem to have a better relationship than us, the more critical I become, the more negative I become, where I almost get to the point where I can't see anything good in us. I don't see anything good in you, because all I can focus on is how we're falling short and how you're not measuring up, which means we are not them. You don't feel honored. You don't feel appreciated. You don't feel loved. And in a way, I don't really care. Because all I'm focusing on is criticizing the things that I don't like and that I don't appreciate. Comparison game in marriages often leads to affairs. I don't like this marriage relationship. I like this person over here, and so I'm going to start heading this direction. And even if it doesn't lead to a sexual affair, there's an emotional affair that can take place. That I become more connected and share more even intimate things with this other person that I'm not even married to, more so than my own spouse. Why? Because when I compare the two, I connect with this person better. The comparison game leads to more resentment. I just hold on to anger. I build up resentment towards you because you're not doing what I think you should. And even if you point out my faults and the things that I'm not doing or that I'm doing wrong that are keeping us from being more like them, well, you're just seeing things all wrong because you're the one to blame. And I become more resentful of you, and you become more resentful of me because of all the criticism and all the negativity. And a lot of times, as we said last week, what ends up happening in these games we play, we lose. We lose trust. We lose intimacy. We lose connection. We may even lose the relationship altogether. That friendship comes to an end. Who wants to be a friend to somebody who is constantly critical and constantly comparing our friendship to somebody else? That dating relationship is over with. Why? I don't want to date this person because I never feel like I can measure up. Kids become much more distant from their parents. Parents become much more resentful of their kids. Why? Because they're not like other families. Marriages come to an end. Because I can't be who you want me to be, and we are not them, and you're never going to be happy until we are, so you know what? I'm done. And the more we play the comparison game, the more damage we actually do. So, what do? How do I combat this? How do I keep from allowing comparison and the comparison game to be the thing that destroys this relationship? Well, first thing I got to do is actually stop comparing. And I know that sounds really simple, and it's a whole lot easier said than done, but it is a conscious decision. It is a conscious choice. I'm going to stop comparing us with them. I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to stop holding on to that comparison. I'm going to make a choice every single day that I'm not going to constantly see how we're measuring up to everybody else. When Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 gives a description of what love is, and he has all these different traits, and this is what love looks like, and this is what love in action is like. And when you see these traits on display, you know that person is showing love. And one of the things that he says, he's describing those different traits of love. In 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 4, he says, love does not envy. Because if I'm envious of you, if I'm jealous of what you have or what you're accomplishing, it becomes very difficult for me to love you. I can't care enough about you to want to sacrificially meet your needs, to let go of the things that I want to do so that I can do something to bless you and to make your life better, which is what the core of love is all about. I can't do that for you if I'm constantly jealous of you. It just doesn't work. That's not love. And the same thing is true in our relationships. It's hard for us to have love for each other if I'm constantly jealous and envious of someone else and wanting you to be jealous of them too. It's not loving to me to be jealous of what somebody else has in their relationship and expect you to provide that same thing for me. That's not love. That's selfishness. That's pride. And it often comes when we compare. And so if I want to stop playing the comparison game, I have to actually stop comparing. Just kind of as a side note, you want to know one of the ways that I can get better at not comparing? Excuse me. Is to limit or maybe even eliminate how much time I spend on social media. Now, before you roll your eyes, I'm not going to bash on social media. I'm on social media, okay? Probably not as many, I'm an old guy, so probably not as many different platforms as some of the rest of you. But I'm not going to harp on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and whatever else is out there that we socialize on. But there, in case you didn't know this, there have been multiple documented studies that have been done on the impact that social media has on our minds and on the way we think about ourselves and on the way that we think about other people. And when it impacts our minds, that impacts our thoughts and our actions and our attitudes. It impacts my sense of my self-worth and even the status of my relationships. For example, I'll give you one example. There was a recent study that was done in the UK about social media, and it was on a lot of different aspects of how social media is affecting different people. But one thing that they discovered, they talked to this one group in this sample of people they were surveying and doing this study on. And the women that were part of this study that either were in a committed dating relationship or were married to someone, they discovered that 40% of those women who were in a committed relationship felt more unhappy about their relationship due to viewing other couples on social media. 40% of these women, as soon as they see what somebody else is doing, or at least their perception or what's been posted on social media, they're really edited, nice, cleaned up pictures where everybody's looking the same direction and smiling, and the background looks great, and whatever caption they put on it, talk about how amazing their life is. And the women in this study, 40% of them, when they looked at couples having some kind of really positive experience, they immediately felt worse about their own relationship just by viewing that. The reason I bring that up is because I want us to understand that we compare a lot, sometimes without even thinking about it. And we allow that comparison to sink into our hearts, to sink into our thoughts, and to impact our attitudes and impact our actions and impact the way we view this other person that we're in this relationship with. So we got to do something about that. And when I say do something about that, we got to get drastic. We got to get serious about it. So maybe that means I get off of social media for a while, or at least limit the time. Maybe that means I consciously, I tell myself, maybe even verbally out loud, when I find myself and I realize, man, I'm comparing us to them, I need to tell myself, stop doing that. I mean, Jesus gets at the root of this. We've talked about this before in Matthew chapter 5 and verse 30. Jesus says, if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. Is Jesus advocating amputations and removal of body limbs? No. But what he's saying is, if there's something that's causing a problem, get rid of the root of the problem. And get serious about it, get drastic about it. Make a significant change. Do something intentional to get rid of the source of the problem. If I'm constantly frustrated and constantly resentful and constantly disappointed and constantly critical and constantly manipulating and constantly blaming in this relationship because I am constantly jealous of somebody else, I've got to stop comparing. I've got to stop comparing. Now, as a follow-up to that. If I'm going to stop comparing, then the next thing I have to do is to find contentment in this relationship. To find contentment, to choose to be content, to choose to find happiness in us and in our relationship with each other. And that's not to say that we can't improve things. That's not to say that we shouldn't grow and get better and work on getting closer and communicating better and spending more time together. That's great. I need to do those kind of things. But part of the reason, oftentimes, that I play the comparison game in my marriage or with my kids or with my parents or with certain friendships or the person that I'm dating is because I'm choosing to not focus on the good stuff that's happening in that relationship. All I'm thinking about are the things that I don't like. All I'm thinking about are the flaws and the mistakes and the cracks and the things that could be better. And especially when I compare those to what I see in others that don't seem to have, at least to my eyes, those flaws and those mistakes. So find the contentment in the relationship that I'm in. The Apostle Paul says in Philippians chapter 4 and verse 8, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, do what? Think about those kinds of things. Focus on those kinds of things. Pay attention to those kinds of things. Dwell on those kinds of things. Now, I think there's a lot of applications of this one piece of advice that Paul gives us here in Philippians chapter 4, but especially this morning as we're talking about our relationships, I think that we need to be conscious and to make a conscious, consistent effort to think about and to dwell on and to focus on the good stuff in the relationships that we already have. Can things be better? Yes. But that doesn't mean that nothing is good. So focus on the good stuff. The things that I appreciate. The things that this person is doing to make me feel loved or make me feel accepted or make me feel close or make me feel listened to. I need to focus on that. I need to think about that. I need to dwell on that. Because you know what that will help me do? Not compare. If I can find more contentment in our relationship, I will become less and less habitual in comparing us to somebody else. So take the time to do that. Matter of fact, there's a variety of ways to do that. But let's practice right now. Let's practice right now. Hadn't even planned to do this, but I'm going to. You got a bulletin? Maybe. You got a notebook or a journal? You got something to write with? If you don't have any of those things, you got a phone? I bet you got a phone. Pull out your notes app or something like that. If you're watching online, I don't know, pull up a document or a notepad or get your phone out too. It doesn't matter to me who it is. I just want you to think about one person that you're in a relationship right now, dating relationship, marriage, parents, kids, friendship. Just think of that person. You don't even have to write down their name because maybe you don't want the people next to you to see it. Doesn't matter. Think of that person right now. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to do nothing but thumb out or write down everything that's good, not just about that person, but about y'all's relationship, about how they make you feel, about what is good about y'all being together in this connection with each other. Just start writing, just start typing. On your mark, set, go. All right, that was about 30 seconds. Maybe faster, maybe slower, I don't know. Some of y'all are still writing, and that's awesome. Folks, if you did this exercise, and I'm not grading you whether you did or not, if you did this exercise, look what you just did. For 30 seconds, you focused on what's good about the relationship with whoever that person is that you already have. What if we did that on a regular basis? What if every day I reminded myself why it's good to be married to this person, why it's good to be friends with this person, why it's good to be dating this person, why it's good to have these parents, why it's good to have these kids. What if we took some time to do that and to actually write it down? And maybe even share it with that other person. To even look them in the eyes and go, here's what I appreciate about you. Here are the things that you do that I think help make us a good us. You don't think that'll have an impact? Not just on us, but just on my own mindset. Why? Because I'm choosing to think about what's admirable, what's noble, what's pure, what's lovely, what's excellent, what's praiseworthy. I'm finding contentment in the relationship that I have. And that's going to help me to not compare us to somebody else. Very quickly, the other thing I need to do as a part of that process is to pour into this relationship, to pour more into this relationship. And here's what I mean by that. Gavin, come help me out real quick. Just take a second. You don't have to do anything. He gets applause just by getting up out of his chair. That's awesome. All I need you to do, I think you can do this. Because are you a senior in high school? Or, yeah, you got this, okay. Just this pitcher of water, that's a cup, just pour some water in your cup. And then just stand there and look good while you're holding it. No problem. Okay. If I'm going to stop playing the comparison game, I need to pour into our relationship, right? Now, here's what could happen. I can sit there, he's got his cup of water, and my cup is empty. And so I can sit there and go, man, that's not fair. He's got water in his cup, and I don't have any water in my cup. I mean, who is he that he gets to have water and I don't? I wish that I had water, but here I am with this empty cup. And here he is he could drink that, he could pour more into it, and here I am with this stupid empty cup. Why can't I have what he has? You know why I can't have what he has? Because I haven't poured anything into this. Now, hear me say, this is a really simplistic illustration. I understand that. But folks, this is what we do on a regular basis when we compare ourselves, and especially our relationships, to what somebody else has. We look at their cup, and we look at how much water they have in their cup, and we complain about why they have all that water, and we complain about ours being empty when we're not doing anything to pour any water into our own. Does that make sense? So, stop comparing. Start finding contentment and happiness in the relationship that I'm in, and then start pouring into this relationship. Maybe I'll start having a full cup too. Thank you, Gavin. That's all I needed from you. Thank you. I told you it was going to be simple. Well done. Good job. We spend so much time being frustrated and envious and jealous and angry that somebody else seems to have a better relationship than we do. And we haven't put any effort into ours. You know, when Jesus tells a story in Matthew chapter 25 about this guy, we call it a parable. We call it the parable of the talents. And maybe you've heard that story before, maybe brand new to you. But when Jesus tells a story about this guy that has a bunch of money and he divides it up among some of his workers, and he goes on a trip and he leaves them to invest it and do stuff while he's gone. He comes back and two of the guys have double what he gave him, and one guy hasn't done anything with it. And he gets frustrated with the guy that hasn't done anything with it. Even though he didn't lose the money, he didn't do anything with it. And he gets frustrated and angry with him. because he didn't even make any effort. And as he wraps up that story, Jesus says this in Matthew chapter 25 and verse 29, whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. I think ultimately, in that context, Jesus is talking about when God gives you talents and abilities and opportunities to use those talents and gifts and abilities, then you need to use them. And the more that you use the talents and gifts and abilities and opportunities that God gives you, the more blessed you are going to be. You're going to be blessing other people, and you're going to be blessed even more by using what God has given you to bless other people. But if you don't do anything with those talents and gifts and abilities that God has given you, if you don't take advantage of the opportunities, then what's going to happen? Eventually, the opportunities are going to go away. But I think the same principle can apply to our relationships. And the more that I pour into the relationships that I'm in, the more blessed we will be. And the more that I pour into it, the more good is going to come out of it. And God is going to continue to allow me to pour more into it. And it's just going to keep getting better and better. And not just bless us, but bless other people. But the more that I keep from pouring into our relationship with each other, eventually, we're not even going to have the relationship anymore. You put water in a cup and you leave it sitting for a long time, what happens to it? It dries up, evaporates, fades away. You stay connected in a relationship with somebody and you don't encourage, you don't love, you don't honor, you don't support, you don't communicate, you don't spend time, you don't serve. You know what's going to happen in that relationship? It's going to dry up, evaporate, and go away. If I will stop comparing cups of water and just start pouring into mine, I'm going to be blessed. We are going to be blessed. I need to stop complaining about why my cup isn't as full as theirs. I need to stop complaining about why our relationship isn't like theirs. I need to start pouring into us and watch the blessings that come from it. That's how we keep the comparison game from taking over our relationships. We stop comparing. We find contentment. And we pour more of ourselves into this relationship than what we've been doing in the past. That's what I invite you to do this morning. We're going to stand up in just a second and we're going to sing a song together. And it's a song that's familiar to at least a lot of us, and it's a song that's actually a prayer to God. I'm saying, God, help me recognize, help me see the things that are clogging up my heart, that are keeping me from being the person that you want me to be. And as we're singing that song together, if you recognize, not even your other relationships, if you recognize that your cup that represents your relationship with God is empty, you're welcome to come to the front today and say, I am so distant from God. It's no wonder that I feel distant in my marriage, that I feel distant with my kids, with my parents, that I feel disconnected from my friends, because I'm completely disconnected from Him. And if you want to share that with us, you will find no judgment or criticism here. You will find people who will wrap you up in love and prayer and all the help that we can give. If you want to come forward and share that with us. And if you're sitting there this morning realizing that in that one relationship that you spent 30 seconds writing down good stuff, that in all actuality, you're not for sure that relationship is going to survive. It's broken. Or you spent a whole bunch of time being negative and critical because you've been comparing that connection to somebody else. If you want to share that with us, church family, and confess that, you're welcome to do that here. Again, there's no judgment. There's no criticism. There's just help and love. Don't leave here this morning holding on to the emptiness of bitterness and resentment because of comparison. If we can help you let go of that today, we want to. You just come forward and share how. While together we stand and sing.